My parents are Tom Seegmiller and Tammy Tate. The beginning of their relationship was pretty difficult. My dad had high hopes of going to law school. He wanted to kind of break out of his small town, and my mom got pregnant. Of course, they weren't married, and that kind of derailed all of his goals and her goals. And so they both dropped out of college and started a family. They have 8 kids, so I'm one of 8 children. I'm number 2. The first few years of that marriage and that family were very difficult. As the oldest kids, we felt a lot of the anguish and a lot of the fighting and a lot of the disagreements and the struggle. My older brother was preparing to go on a mission to Perth, Australia. And he told my parents, he said, "I'm not sure I can serve a mission if my family's not sealed in the temple." When I was 16, we gathered around, those 8 kids around the altar and with my parents, and we were sealed in the temple. That was quite an experience for me spiritually, and it's been something that we celebrate now in the family is, you know, our temple sealing anniversary. And so, in spite of the struggles that I saw my parents go through, I think I've learned a lot with them and from them. So I practice as an attorney. I have my own law office. I have to go back to my mission to explain how I got there. In the last area of my mission, we were preparing to baptize a family, and I said, "Well, do you rent this house? Do you own this house?" She said, "I don't know. We just live here." And I said, "Well, who built the house?" And she said, "Well, we built it." And it bothered me that at that moment and throughout my mission that people were so poor that they didn't understand their rights, especially when it came to property. And so when I came home from my mission, I started thinking about law school. Graduated from BYU in finance in their business school, and before you know it, I was in law school in Champaign-Urbana at the University of Illinois. The practice of law has been a blessing to me. It's been a blessing to my family, and it goes back to, I think, my patriarchal blessing, where it says that I will be guided into an area, a professional area that'll match up well with my talents and who I want to become in my service to the Lord. My final year at BYU, so I was preparing to graduate and also to go to law school, I was in a pretty terrible accident. I would ride my bike back and forth to school every day, and I had a set path that I did that. I could ride to school on this street and come back from work on this street, and I was coming back from work one evening, and a semi-truck driver, a big dump truck driver, ran a stop sign. And as he ran the stop sign, my life went into slow motion, and I just started seeing, you know, my life play out before my eyes. And so I was smashed up into the grill of this dump truck and then ran over and tossed into the street. And I remember being I knew I was either going to be dead or very close to it. And this man that was driving the dump truck jumped out of his truck and ran up to me and started swinging his fist at me like he wanted to fight. And he was screaming at me vulgarities, and so I'm left-handed, and I lifted my left hand up to kind of defend myself and wondering what was going on, and my hand just kind of collapsed over and fell, and I realized that I was in rough shape. And some girl walking by, she screamed at this man and said, "Oh my gosh, you ran him over and then you're going to hit him?" Shortly, you know, the ambulance was there, and I was in the hospital in the ER. They thought my, you know, back was broken and just the different broken bones. And when they were doing my back, x-raying that, I remember I just broke down in tears, and I was just crying and feeling broken. And I didn't have anybody there that I thought, you know, I was thinking, who could give me a blessing? Who could help me out? And anyways, my younger brother was there, and he just turned 18, and he had just been ordained an elder and had never given a blessing. He came in and they had told me that my wrist had been broken across my hand, so it was broken that way, but also it was cracked and broken the other way and twisted 47 degrees. And so it was just a big kind of a swollen mess. And my brother put his hands on my head, this 18-year-old kid, and he gave me a blessing, and he said, I'll bless you that your bones will be straight, and they'll be rigid and strong, and all these things. And it brought me to tears, because I thought, man, he doesn't know how to do blessings. He's only an 18-year-old kid. So 4 or 5 days later, they were giving me some x-rays on my arm to figure out how to set the bones and where pins would need to go and all these things. And he says, your bones have twisted like right back into place. And he said, I think if we were to go put a cast on them right now, that somehow they're in a perfect location. If we just cast it up, he says, I don't know that you'll need any pins or surgery at all. And it was just a miracle for my life to be in that spot, and then blessed in that way through the priesthood. I never was going to be the person that went through a divorce. Having gone through that process, it makes you cling closer than ever to your Father in heaven. Going through that process, that fire that you never want to go through, led me to the point where I realized I could lose everything, I could lose everything in a worldly way, but if I surrendered completely to God, that I would win. I would get up in the morning and surrender and say, God, here's my hands. I'm surrendering my hands today to do thy work, and I'm going to surrender my feet today. I'd pray and say, God, please accelerate my pace and lengthen my stride so that I can accomplish thy work today, and surrender my mind, surrender my eyes, surrender my ears. And by surrendering those things to God, I found great strength in moving forward through challenges and great opposition that I wouldn't have otherwise had. Going through a divorce, prior to my divorce, I was in the Elders Quorum presidency. Once the divorce, my ex asked for the divorce, I was released from the Elders Quorum presidency, and promptly had 0 visits from the bishopric or the Elders Quorum or anybody in my ward. And it just so happened that we ended up being in the same ward, my ex-wife and I, with these young children. And I needed some brother to reach out to me, and it didn't happen. I had this house that it was my house, but it had nothing in it. And so it was an empty house and me. And so on the weekends when my kids would come, I didn't have anything for them. And then having no support from my brothers in the ward and others, or bishopric or anybody, I was at a low spot. And I remember around Christmas time, around this time of year, someone showed up at my house and did the 12 days of Christmas. And the first day of Christmas, they brought me some silverware. And I wept. I opened the door and I wept because I had silverware. And someone brought like a bed frame, little cute bed frame for a girl. And I wept for that. And I found myself weeping almost every day during those 12 days of Christmas. And it's really softened my heart and who I am today when I see other people that are struggling and see someone going through, because a lot of times you don't know what's going on, behind the scenes and behind the tie and behind the white shirt. My mission for me on earth was to lift and love others without restriction, without limit, and without fear. I want them to know that my faith was secure and steadfast in all of life's adversities, and that everything is possible, that they can take their vision of who they want to be, and they can align that with God's will for them, and they literally can accomplish anything they want to accomplish. I think my childhood kind of led me to really just have a lasting love for summer garden vegetables. And so Julie and I have a little property up on Cedar Mountain that we're seeking to build into our sacred grove. And we're not there yet, but we're working on that, and that's probably my favorite place on earth. Favorite book is As a Man Thinketh. Psalms, I think it's 37:5. Commit thy way unto the Lord, and trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. Ye simple souls who stray.